It's me, Capri. My mommy is the best. Super Mom Robin. She helps mommies get their smiles back, their giggles back, and their sparkle back. You wait for the show. Brush. Get ready for It's Super Slowly and Super Strong.
Welcome to another exciting episode of Healing with the Soul podcast. It is your go-to resource for parents and want-to-be parents who strive for success without sacrificing connection and well-being. Each episode delivers actionable strategies and inspiring insights to help you build emotional intelligence and resilience for yourself and for your family. Strengthen relationships with yourself, your partner, and your children. Master parenting as an entrepreneur, even while raising young children. Discover life and parenting hacks that simplify your journey. Explore hypnosis and other healing modalities for a deeper transformation. This podcast isn't just about parenting and a fertility journey. It's about creating harmony, wealth, and alignment in every area of life. Let's get started.
Welcome to Healing for the Soul podcast, sponsored by Supermom Robin Stoltman, where every week I feature different guests to empower you to become the best version of yourself through different methods you may not have heard of or thought of. If you are ever looking for a virtual assistant, I highly recommend Sphere Rocket to delegate any business-related tasks like grow your social medias, book appointments, and much more that all businesses require, boosting your sales, productivity, and much more. The link to Sphere Rocket is at the bottom of this episode. This is Season 6, Episode number 44. Today I have my guest, Matt Johnson, who is a hypnotherapist and NLP coach who turned his recovery journey into powerful methods to help others transform their lives. After a devastating brain injury left him living in darkness, Matt discovered that hidden PTSD was sabotaging his healing. By rewiring his subconscious with hypnotherapy and NLP, he not only recovered his health, he developed a method for helping others release deeply rooted emotional baggage and break free from subconscious blocks. And today we are talking about how to heal impossible conditions. Thank you so much, Matt, for being here with our audience.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, how did you get into hypnosis and NLP?
That is a great question. 2016, I got a severe brain injury. I was out hiking with my kids at a place called Point Loma Tide Pools here in San Diego, and I slipped and my feet came out for me and I landed the back of my head on a slab of solid rock. I hit so hard, my brain actually rebounded, hit the top of my skull, and it twisted the part here above my eyes. Brutal pain. If you've ever been zapped by electricity and you felt that intense pins and needles type feeling, that's what was going on in my head. For the next several years, I was so sensitive to light and sound, I couldn't even be in a room with the lights on. It was just too painful. And I had a room in my house I nicknamed my dungeon. I had black hefty bags taped up over the windows. At first, I couldn't even look at my computer or my phone. It was just me alone in the dark with my thoughts. I spent the next several years, reading every single medical study I could find, trying every harebrained trick there was. And I actually came up with a 3-page document of everything that helped me, everything from amino acids to hyperbaric oxygen. And I gave a presentation on it, on everything in that document to the San Diego Brain Injury Foundation. Anybody wants a copy of that, I give it out free of charge. Just hit me up. But during that time, I went through 4 neurologists, and the first one I go in and he says, well, there's nothing I can do for you. And then tries to schedule me for a repeat visit. I'm like, why would I come back if there's nothing you could do for me? I didn't say that, but it just didn't make sense to me. And so on to neuro number 2, gave me a pill that made me worse. And then in the beginning, I called the next day and he gave me another one, made me better, took the sting out a little bit. Like, okay, this is progress. So can you help me with my sleeping? Because I was going through these just brutal downward spirals where the pain made it harder to sleep, which made the pain worse. And just, it was not fun. And he's like, no, there's nothing I can do for you. So on to neuro number 3, right away, she tells me, oh yeah, I can give you amitriptyline. And that worked. I was getting a nice 7 hours of sleep a night, which was, heaven compared to where I was. And I'm beyond grateful to my doctors. I would not be where I am without them. The only reason I tell that story is how many people would have stopped with that first one. You know what I mean? It's, they got the piece of paper, the lab coat, and, that does not mean they know everything though. All right. But sitting in
That's
that
for
dark
sure.
room, yeah, sitting in that dark room, I did something which got me out, which was I made a decision. The word decision comes from the Latin root de, which means from, and kaidir, which means to cut. When you make a real decision, you cut off any other possibility. I had no clue what that journey was going to look like, but I just knew I wasn't going to stop. After a few years of geeking out on all the medical studies and the treatments and all that, I came to a terrifying realization that medical science was not going to be able to heal me. And so I started looking around for all right, what else is out there? And lucky for me, I live in California, so I had a lot to choose from. But I started getting into energy medicine and things like that. And one of the first things I tried was called Reiki. And I was a total skeptic, going in, until I had no choice, you know what I mean? But I go in there, I'm not expecting much. And, she starts working on me. And the best description I can give is I told you I had those pins and needles in my head, right? She kind of made
Yeah.
them fly in formation, if that makes sense. And it took the sting away. I'm like, whoa, I have no idea what you're doing. Please don't stop. And so at the end of the treatment, I'm like, can you teach me how to do that? And so I spent several days with her, learned how to do Reiki. I dove into, pranic healing, Qigong, anything that I found that's, helped me. I tried to just dive in and master it, and made huge progress over the next couple of years, did a lot of healing, but I just could not shake that light and sound sensitivity. And, I could get out a little bit, but I couldn't really live my life. And, at this point I'm thinking, do I have permanent damage? So back to the internet, and I found a special type of brain scan. MRI will look at the tissue, which doesn't really tell you much with a brain injury unless you got something really bad. But I found a guy, Dr. Daniel Amen. He's famous in these circles, written a ton of books, but he does what's called a SPECT scan, which actually maps the electrical activity in the brain. Shows in his books, like, Alzheimer's patients, it looks like they have holes in their brain in the scan just because those areas aren't functioning. So I got my scan, and long story short, my brain was okay, but areas that were supposed to be dark were lit up like fireworks, and I was diagnosed with PTSD that day. I'd already known that I'd had anxiety issues, but I'd never given it that label until that day. And, right away I knew what was happening. The name of the game with a brain injury is bringing your brain waves down and giving your brain a chance to rest and repair itself. My PTSD was keeping me in fight or flight and sabotaging the healing process. And so I knew if I wanted to beat the brain injury, I had to beat the PTSD too. I went, I had gone to, several therapists already in previous years. I, tried, the medications and all that, and I knew that wasn't the path for me. And so lucky for me, I was familiar with hypnosis from my dad getting hypnotized when I was a kid, and he kicked a 30-year smoking habit. Before that, he'd been trying forever, pills, patches, gums, you name it, and failed every single time. After one hypnosis session, he told me never even crave cigarettes again. And so that, and also neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, from a guy named Tony Robbins. And so Tony had a woman who had 152 different personalities. He was actually able to integrate her right there on the spot in about 45 minutes in one of his seminars. I mean, that's the power of this stuff. So I tried the school route. I, got quadruple certified in hypnotherapy and, NLP, and I peppered every single teacher that I had with the exact same question: how do you heal PTSD? They all tried to help me, but none of them really had the answer. And so I knew I had to find it on my own. So back to the internet, I started finding, the best of the best in both fields and just geeking out on all their stuff. And over the next 2.5 years, I put together a protocol that healed me. And about 6 months later, I finally healed my brain injury. And so that is how I got into it. It's a weird thing to say, and I don't want another one, but the brain injury wound up being a huge gift because I was on the wrong path in life. And this really, it not only unveiled the PTSD, but it showed me my calling. I absolutely love this stuff.
I love that. Well,
obviously.
no. Well, yeah. I mean, like, that's, no, I like that, because now I'm thinking, like, for me, like with my own brain injury, like I said, mine's been since I was 16, but I'm like, the PTSD part of it, I'm like, I've done as much as I can think of on it, but now I'm thinking you probably could help me with that part, because I'm like,
Okay.
there's still stuff that still comes up, but it's like, it really sucks because it's like, it's not, like PTSD, like with the brain injury part, it's like, that's what I think amplifies the whole effects of it. Because like I said, I still have some of the effects of my brain injury, and I know that, but it's not fun. I mean,
Right.
like, I wouldn't wish it on anybody. That's why I'm like, it's
Yeah.
so difficult, but it's like the traditional ways have failed. Like they failed me anyway in so many ways, but I mean, like, mine was 2002. So I mean, like, they didn't know as much as they know now, but they still don't know as much about the brain,
Right.
Back then they thought it showed up only on MRI or CT, and it
Yeah.
doesn't.
Right.
Like what you said, unless you have it really bad, then it would. But I didn't know about that one machine you were talking about. I'm like, that would be pretty cool to see, like, because I've done the whole neurology things and I've done all that. And then it's kind of funny because it's like, I can tell if doctors don't look at my chart enough
Yeah.
before they see me.
Yeah, I know.
Because it's like, when I go in, literally, it's kind of funny because it's like, oh, well, you've got a sensation on this side, more than this side. And I'm like, did you read my chart? And they're like, oh, a little bit. And I'm like, okay, I have a brain injury, so one side I can feel better than the other side of my body. Just straight out facts. So I mean, like, it's kind of funny on that part of it to catch, to see if a provider's any good. It's
Yeah. Or if they do their homework. Yeah.
sad but true.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, like, no, you're fine. So like, the subconscious mind, like, for the influencing of the emotional responses, how can one reprogram it, especially like after brain injury, for like that peace or balance? And
Yeah,
like you said, like the
absolutely.
PTSD with that.
Absolutely. And you touched on it. Therapy is a great thing for a lot of cases, you know what I mean? It's exactly what a lot of people need. But in my case, it did not work. I had 3 different therapists. One of them was, semi-famous in San Diego. She, coaches executives and things like that on, stress, and she's good at what she does. But in my case, it was like a garden hose against the tide. It just wasn't going to happen. And I got medicated and all that. The medications made me worse. And so I knew as soon as I got that diagnosis of PTSD, I knew I needed another route. We're all familiar with the fact we have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind, right? We think that the conscious mind is the one that's large and in charge, but in reality, the subconscious is thousands of times more powerful than the conscious mind. It controls everything in your body. You don't have to think about your breathing, heartbeat, body temperature, how much insulin you create after a meal. It also, by age 30, controls up to 95% of all your behaviors. And if that sounds a lot, think back to the first time you drove a car. Your hands were 10 and 2, and you were super focused on not hitting anything, right? You had to be. Fast forward a few years and you've got cell phone in one hand, coffee in the other. I'm kidding. Please don't do that. But, how did the process become so automatic, right? Most of us have had the experience of driving and realizing we haven't even been paying attention. So what kept us from crashing? Your subconscious mind learned how to drive just through repetition. That's the process. Very cool for driving, but bad things can happen when we hand it things that we don't want, when we teach it to do things we don't want, negative emotions, limiting beliefs, triggers, that kind of thing. When they get stuck in there, when they get programmed into that computer, subconscious mind works just like a computer. It does not think, it just responds. But when you get the wrong program stuck in there, that's where hypnosis and NLP can really go in and change it. Hypnosis, most people get their intro through like stage hypnosis, which is designed to entertain. If you watch those shows, they'll bring people up and put them under, but they'll be very playful with the people up there, and they're looking to see who plays back. They're seeing who wants to entertain the audience. Those people who are doing the crazy stuff up there, they're in full control of what they're doing. You never lose the ability to accept or reject any suggestion given. That's, that ability is there with you. You always have your wits about you, all of it. You're always in control. But that said, hypnosis gives the ability to kind of set the conscious mind aside, just let it relax a little bit, and let us go in and work on those subconscious programs. And you can get some really profound results. Fears, phobias, bad memories, things like that. We can really, go in and rewrite those, take the sting out of them, and help you reframe those in your mind so your subconscious sees, hey, this isn't a threat anymore. I can relax, here 30 years later. NLP is kind of like having the operator's manual for your brain. If, a common, issue that people come to me with is I have these repetitive thoughts, or I'm ruminating, something like that. All right, tune into how you play those thoughts. Are they on the right or the left? Are they, how big are they? Are they in color, black and white? And once we do that, it's like, all right, you're holding it, over here. Let's dump a bucket of white paint on it and see what happens. And instantly they get relief. Let's push it way out on the horizon and just, make it so small you can barely see it. And that causes the feelings to go away. Very simple visualizations, but we're teaching you how you do those processes. And once you make those conscious, you can then turn them into what you want. If that makes sense. Another long-winded answer.
No, it's fine. It makes sense to me. I'm just smiling because I'm like, I just love the brain, like how it works, like why we do what we do and how we do what we do. That's how I've described like the hypnosis and the NLP difference, like between the two, because I'm like, NLP is more of the how we're doing and why we're doing it, versus hypnosis is, well, we're working with it. We're just trying to get you in alignment with the subconscious mind, like what you do want versus what you don't want, but coming from the conscious mind.
Yeah.
That's I'm like, when people are talking about all this consciousness, that they want to be more conscious, I'm like, well, it's great to be aware of something, but once you're aware of it, it really does no good until you use hypnosis and NLP to change it.
Right.
So I'm
one of the icons in hypnosis world, a guy named Milton Erickson, brilliant hypnotist, but he had a famous quote talking to hypnotists. He said, "Your clients are your clients because they're out of rapport with their subconscious mind." That is so true.
I love Milton.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He did some incredible things. He could supposedly make boils disappear just by talking to you. It's crazy.
Yes, and then he used like tomato plants. He would use to get a person to stop smoking, and people would be like, I don't know. He was just talking about tomatoes, and then they're like, "Well, have you smoked?" And he's like, and the person's like, "No." Well, it didn't work, and it's like, well, no, it did work. But it's so funny because it's like some people, I don't know if you've noticed this, but like some people, like when you've done the hypnosis, they're like, "Oh, it didn't work," but it's like, but your habit, your behavior that you had, that you came in for, is gone. Like, even though sometimes it'll be months later or like a year later. Yeah. I've had some suggestions where they come a year later, and I was like, why did it come a year later all of a sudden?
It depends on how long that habit's been there. Neurons that fire together wire together. So if you've got a super highway in your brain to that habit, and we're talking physical wiring here, if it's something that's really been there a long time, gets used every day, that's going to be a little harder to remove. It's totally doable, but it's just, it may take a few more sessions for something like that. It's it all depends, but you have to look at with hypnosis, the name of the game is just diving in and being like a little kid. We all play pretend at some point, right? For me, it was, me and a buddy of mine would go and hunt each other in the woods using, stick for guns, basically playing G.I. Joe. I'm dating myself here, but at some point, that stick became real in my mind, right? If there was part of me just hanging back, just saying, "Oh, this is just a stick," then I lost some of that impact, right? It's that same exact mechanism in the brain that we want to use. Just dive in and be a little kid. That's the degree you get the change. You touched on it. Hypnosis is very subtle. There's no flashing lights saying, "Oh, I'm hypnotized all of a sudden." It's, again, you'll notice that your behaviors change, and they're subtle but profound. I've worked with, I just had a soldier client, got some stuff in the Marine Corps, and I worked with him, and he had been just binge eating, and, well, not binge eating, just constantly eating junk food. And that habit, we didn't even work on it. He didn't even tell me about it, but it went away just because we got rid of that stress that he was under. So yeah, it's crazy stuff. I mean, there's, it's fascinating to me. I could talk about it all day, but there's, my opinion, there's not a lot of changes we can't make.
Yeah, well, that's what I love about the hypnosis and the NLP together. Like when you combine them, I'm like, it's okay if you do the hypnosis But it's like, I love it when you combine the NLP because it seems like it makes it so much faster rate that you get the results when you really use both of them. And then when you're able to teach the clients, because that's one of the things that I love to do, is to teach them how to do it on their own. So they don't need me all the time. Because like when I was stuck in the traditional talk therapy, I did that for 16 years. Not a single one of them taught me how to do anything on my own. I already knew how to talk. Yeah, and they just didn't know. And then it's like all the medicines, it's like, I've been medication free for like 8 years. No, I'm trying to think. Yeah, it's been 8 years because Lester's 8. It's like, it's amazing how long have you been doing the hypnosis and NLP? I guess I should have asked. Is that since the 2016? Or when did you start?
It was 2018 when I got diagnosed. And so, it was, about 7 years now, something like that. Yeah. But time flies. But you touched on the medication. We're all familiar with the famous placebo effect, right? Drug companies are required to test for it. They have the control for every study that they do on a drug. The placebo effect sometimes can have a bigger effect than the drug they're testing. You know what I mean? It's been shown to have up to a 70% cure rate in clinical drug trials. Why is that? It's because the subconscious runs everything in the body, like we talked about before. And it also controls, we've all had that feeling of getting stressed and, feeling that pit in our stomach. We created that with nothing but a thought, right? Physiological response, just by thoughts in our head, right? That's because your subconscious controls everything that's going on in your body. Dr. Bruce Lipton wrote a fascinating book, Biology of Belief, where he talks about beliefs can reprogram our DNA, literally controlling what genes are switched on or off. Dr. Bernie Siegel, way back in the day, did really fascinating research with multiple personality disorder, where his patient's eye color would change, going from brown to blue and back. Scars and physical markings would disappear and reappear. That's how powerful the subconscious is. Now, if you've got a healing journey that you're on, that power can be negative and work against you, or you can harness it to get your subconscious mind on your side. It's not a replacement for medical care and all that stuff, but it can be a very cool addition.
Yeah, I would definitely agree on that one. That's why I'm like, one of those things that's just like, you got to use common sense on it. Because it's like, if you've got, certain things, like an injury is obviously going to be different in how it heals versus, like, you don't know why something happens and there's like no medical reason for it. I'm like, you got to use the common sense part on that part of it. So like, how does like the unresolved trauma show up in our life, and how can hypnosis release that?
All kinds of ways. When learning about PTSD, I found out there are 15 different reactions people have to it. The side effects, basically, for everything from hypervigilance all the way to flashbacks. I always, when I'm working with somebody, usually, no matter what the issue is, I always start out with dealing with those, those bad memories. And I got a process that I do. It takes the sting out of them. And that right there will calm down the fight or flight, immensely. And once we do that, that's when the real change can start happening. It's, you got to get your brain to relax and let its guard down before you can actually go in there and start rewriting those programs. But it just depends. It's different for everybody, just depending on, if you were a soldier and you had a, bad memory that happened to you, your personality is already fully formed. Right. And so it's, usually just, dealing with that memory and, the repercussions of that is usually, pretty comprehensive fix. If you were a small child when stuff happened to you, you were still forming your identity at that time. And so that is a more involved process. You've got to go in and, fix, we all created stories about ourselves that, weren't true at the time. Really common one is mom and dad are fighting. I must have done something wrong. Right. In reality, you had nothing to do with that. But those stories, you basically created survival mechanisms to help you survive the environment that you were in. But going in and fixing, self-worth issues or, self-sabotaging or things like that, it's a process, but it's totally doable.
How common have you found like self-sabotaging with the PTSD? especially like
Ooh.
after the brain injury has affected you, or maybe it hasn't affected you.
Yeah. I don't diagnose, so I don't really, I don't keep track of, how many people have PTSD or anything like that. It is very common though. Until I got into this line of work, I had no idea how evil people could be to each other. I thought I knew, but I really, people who you think are leading charmed lives are just really good at hiding, what's
Yeah,
going on underneath the surface. That it is
they really are.
everywhere and it's incredibly sad, but I'm on a mission to fix that and, try to, get the word out about, hey, here's a new, incredibly powerful set of tools that we can use to actually go in and root that stuff out. But, self-sabotage, things like that, yeah, it can show up in your life in all kinds of ways. I don't know, you're probably too young to remember Enron and the Enron scandal,
Oh,
but
no, I remember that being on TV
okay,
about for the
okay.
Enron. I'm
Yeah,
sadly old
they were
enough.
cooking the books, and they, the whole company went under, took people's, 401ks with it and all that. I worked with a lady who she was one of the accountants for Arthur Andersen. Now, I don't think she did anything shady, but she, now, she lost her job because of it, and she now had Arthur Andersen on her resume. So that's not a good thing to have in accounting land. But she had tried several times to launch her own business and had just, failed. And she would get right up to the edge and pull the rug out from under herself. And I met her actually in a mastermind, and she was describing her problem like, oh, you've got a block. Let me talk to you. 30 minutes in, after talking to her, we went in and, reworked those memories, and she literally launched the next day, and she's thriving. It's human beings. If you picture all, the emotional baggage and, the mental baggage, things like that, it's kind of like driving a boat with the anchor deployed. The faster you go, the more drag it's going to produce, right? So what you want to do is cut away the anchorage, the anchor of the baggage first, and then you're free to take off. So that's where I always start, and just that alone has huge ripple effects that you won't even know until you get there, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I feel like a different person now.
I was gonna say, have you ever noticed, like, at least for me, I've noticed, like, for every like one issue I've worked on, I swear like another 10 pop up,
Yes.
or because it's
Yes.
like you didn't know about it, and it's
Right.
weird, and it's
Right.
not like all of those need to be worked on, but I'm just like wondering if you've
Yeah.
noticed
Oh
that.
yeah, absolutely. Your subconscious is really, really smart about keeping things out of your awareness that you're not ready to deal with yet. And so I've worked with people who don't remember nothing about their childhoods. You know what I mean? That's a challenge, but still doable. But it's it, its main goal is to keep you alive, keep you safe, right? And it's very noble thing to do. It'll isolate you from the things that it knows you aren't ready to handle yet. So that's why you clear one issue and more pop up. That is really, really common. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, yeah, that subconscious mind, it's weird because it's like I've tried to explain it to people, like for the alcohol or like the drug
Yeah.
addiction. That's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
reason why the person keeps going back to it, is because the subconscious mind is like, oh, this is something good, this is something happy, this is
Yeah.
positive for us.
It's
It's a
pain
horrible
relief.
thing.
It's pain
Yeah.
relief. It numbs you out in the moment, it's a coping mechanism. But once you get off it, I have seen this over and over again. Once you're off of that thing that was numbing you, then all that pain that you've been suppressing comes up. And all of a sudden, not only are you dealing with those cravings, then now you're dealing with all this pain. And so it's, that's what makes it so tough. And, not to mention like triggers, for my dad, it was, anytime he was around his friends all smoked, so he would too. So the hypnotist went in and wiped that out and gave him the opposite reaction. Your friends light up, you feel disgusted. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And it's again just working with those programs that are in there. But absolutely, yeah, your coping mechanisms will change, usually for the better. It's just fascinating. I could talk about this stuff all day long.
Yeah, same here. I'm like at one, I know, like at one point when I was like in the super excited until there was like a certain point that I'm like, oh, this isn't fun anymore. well, it's still fun. Like when I talk to other people about it, but that understand it is really what it is. Because it's like so many people don't understand about their mind. Like that's the thing that really just like was shocking to me. I'm like, you're a person, but you don't know how your mind works. You complain about this, you complain about that. You don't realize that because of that, you're creating more of that.
Yeah.
But you don't want to learn the solution to it.
Yeah. What gets me is when somebody has a license, and doesn't want to, that's really, but it's, I mean, it's cool to not know, but but when you shut your mind off from it just because it's outside of your experience, then I've learned the hard way not to do that, but
Same here.
yeah, but I always say, the minute you know everything is the minute you stop learning. And I never want to be that way. There's so much I don't know. You can tell I geek out on this stuff and I know a lot, but there's so much that I don't know. And I think that's true for every human being, every field there is. There's always something more to learn.
Well, yeah, there definitely is. And I know like when you brought up the Reiki, I was like, yeah, I've done that too. It's so weird how it works, but it works.
Yeah.
Because like I've done it. That's how I healed myself in December 2022 when the doctor told me I was dying in the hospital. It's like all their medicines, all the stuff they're pumping me full of, I still have no clue what it was. Yeah. Turns out it was a bad vitamin that it almost took my life because I had liver failure. They told me I was dying, like I said. But at that moment, it's like I still did Reiki on my liver. Mm-hmm. And when I did it, I'm like, I could not explain it. But 4 hours later, my fever and being on oxygen and all the things that were happening had quit within 4 hours. Yeah. Because I had 103 that I was dealing with. I remember that. And I took pictures. So it's like one of those things I did not want to forget that moment because I'm like, it was so powerful. But then like everything just changed within 4 hours. I do remember that. And I was able to eat and stuff. And it's like, it was weird, but that's all I did. Yeah.
What gets me is I do, healings for people every once in a while. I don't, do it professionally, but somebody I know reaches out and said, hey, and I've had people in the hospital who their vitals went up when I, started working on things like that. It's freaky. I don't understand it. The one thing that I do know, your body runs on electricity. When the electricity stops running through your body, that's when you take a dirt nap, right? Anything that runs on electricity is going to generate an electrical field. And I know I can personally, through doing with this stuff, it's kind of like, a sommelier tasting a wine. When I first came to California, and my girlfriend and wife now got me into wine tasting. At first I couldn't, they're talking about, hints of oak with a butter finish and things like that. I couldn't taste any of it, but it took me a while to where I could really, okay, that's what they're talking about. Same thing with the energy work. The more you do it, the more in tune you get with it. You know what I mean? You get that palate for it. I can feel somebody's electrical field now just by putting my hands in it, and I can tell when it's disorganized or whatnot. And I can actually smooth it out. It's crazy stuff. But that is the extent of my knowledge about Reiki. I do what they tell me and it works. That's all I know.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah. That's why I'm like, it's fascinating because it's like I've done the different things. Because it's like when you start one thing, you're like, oh my gosh, like this works. Yeah. And then you do like the next thing and it works. And what's something that I've been enjoying is like when I add a Bible verse to the hypnosis, it works so much faster. And I was like, I should have been doing this the whole time for different things, You
want to hear something really freaky? There was there was a hospital it was either Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. They had two groups of patients that they had a group pray for, and then they had a control group, right? The group that people prayed for got, better. It was statistically significant, which is a big deal, right? In medicine land, it's, that's when you've got something. The really weird thing is that the patients had been in that hospital 20 years before that experiment started. And so, I don't know how that works, but they reached back in time according to science. This is a controlled study. It's crazy stuff. I don't understand it, but it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. It's just like, wow.
Yeah.
So, what's the best way for our audience to get in contact with you?
You can go to Matt Johnson NLP. That's MattJohnson and NLP for neurolinguistic programming.com. And that's got links to all my programs. I've got a free NLP course on there that's it will help you dissolve fear, deal with limiting beliefs, imposter syndrome, procrastination. Basically, my most requested top list. You'll get an NLP exercise for each one. Got programs where you can work with me one-on-one. I have a subscription I do called Limitless by Design, where we work with all the areas of your life, health, wealth, relationships, and help you install the subconscious programming to create the life that you want, one shift at a time. 52 weeks, 52 shifts in the subconscious. January we do making your New Year's resolution real. February is relationships, things like that. Right now in October, it's all about finding your tribe. We're working on getting rid of social scar tissue and installing that charisma, things like that, to make you into a people magnet. But check that. It's a great program, very super low cost. I'm trying to trying to get the word out on the power of this stuff and what it can do for you. And so I'm trying to keep it super affordable for everybody.
No, that's great. So I appreciate it. I'm sure our audience will too. My words got to trip up some days, I tell you.
Been hanging out with me too long.
Well, I just want to remind everybody to remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Healing for the Soul podcast, and keep coming back for more episodes. Thank you, everyone, for your time and your energy while listening to today's episode of Healing for the Soul podcast.
That's all for now, folks. Make sure you for fun. Tap that follow button. Subscribe. Quack, quack. Bye-bye. Wow, real next time. Now you got it.